Hello, my name is Raymond Josephine, and I am a living Christ. Today, this Christ reprises the 2,000-year-old demand made by a people entertaining the question, give us Barabbas or give us Christ. It is the question put forth to the authorities, the satanic authorities, at the time of Jesus of Nazareth, some 2,000 years ago. It was this question put forth to the authority symbol of Satanism, which rules over the civilized world. It is repeated here and now in this year of 2020. I refer you to the Post, Josephine County Sheriff's Office, courts, state, police, and federal government engaged in racketeering of travelers and the criminal cover-up thereon. It is a story, an eternal story, of how civilized men have been under satanic mind control since the beginning of time and continues on to this very day of January the 5th, Sunday, 2020. I refer all of you to visit my website, arkenterprises.com, and read the article at arkenterprises.com/index21.html #racketeering with the R capitalized. Read that again. I'm sure many of you have, if it's still up on the internet. For this living Christ, this is nothing more than a simple man of truth, living amidst millions of civilized men and women who are under satanic mind control, living a life of illusion, believing it to be true, conditioned ideas into them, where they are ruled by words, and those words become their gods. Their money becomes their god. That is Satanism. Now, I know that outrages many of you, for anyone to say such things. You see, you have been lied to all of your lives. Most of you do not know what truth is, because I have brought you the truth for the last 25 years on the internet, and you scoff at it. You rail, you resent. Your divisive intellect does not allow you to grasp the simple, unabated Non-dualistic truth, for that can only be perceived by the subconscious mind. I have written hundreds of articles and hundreds of videos. They're all free of charge. But most of you are so mind-controlled, you gather your own security from belief. Belief is a fantasy. Belief can never be true. Only understanding accesses truth. And you are all conditioned to be believers, to be partial, dependent, slaves to words, ideas, myths, illusions. You all live in hell. Yes, civilized life is hell on earth. Now that goes against the grain also of your conditioning, and I understand how that upsets you. But you see, you do not understand that the fact that you are upset is proof of your divisive nature, of your warring nature, your argumentative nature, your violent nature. That's what civilized life is all about. It's split into dualism, good and evil, and you are caught amid those opposites, and that is your life. That's hell on earth, and you are the creators of your own hell. And it's only when you understand, you break loose from the dualism of your intellect, your conditioned, trained intellect, that you can know what truth is. I, this living Christ, have brought this to you, and you hate it. You despise it. Your way of life is threatened by it. Look at the past 25 years at this living Christ. Look at how the whole system of mind control by media, by government, by religions, banks, corporations, all of which are fictional ideas in your head. You see, you are the creator of all of these fictional institutions. They don't exist except for your consent. And then you are victimized by these fictional institutions which create the illusions. They call law, man's law, satanic law. You see, in God's law, there's only do no harm, because you can't harm anyone if you're living a non-dualistic life. And tell no lies. You cannot lie if you're living a non-dualistic life. There's no dualism in order to create conflict in the intellect, which requires that of a lie. Understand? You believe in ideas, in illusions, and you call them your truth. That's how all persons, artificial persons created by artificial, fictional governments and religions, believers, are kept under control. That's the illusion of civilized life. And that's the message that this living Christ, the simple man of truth, has brought you for 25 years. He has faced all the odds and recorded it on the internet, on my website, arkenterprises.com, and LisaRayEnterprises.com. He has faced the satanic mechanism of organizational control of thought on the internet. Those institutionalized groups, corporations, who control the thought of civilized man, you. Speaking of Google, YouTube, Facebook, they're all powerful mind control operations. They're all satanic operations because they deal in dualism. They keep you in a state of total confusion, as does the news media, the TV, the newspapers, magazines. They speak of illusions, something happening somewhere in the world, and they inveigle you into that illusion to where you think it's happening to you. The Middle East is a great example of that, the wars that are going on, the politics in Washington. All they do is promote the violent debate, oppositional argument amongst fictional parties of the left and the right, the Democrats and the Republicans. And somehow they inveigle you into that illusion, causing you to make a choice of who do you support. You understand? The whole system is based on that illusion. And once you make that decision, once you consent to being a supporter of either party, the Democrats or the Republicans, or other political parties, you split yourself. You divide yourself from all other parties, and you are primed to be a person, a robotic, responding, reactive person. And you sell your soul, your living soul, your eternal soul, for that partisanship that you hold sacred. I am antithetical to all that. I have brought you the truth. And as I have said before, it upsets you greatly. But I ask that you pay attention to this living Christ when he says, brings up the modern day version of give us Barabbas or give us Christ, the request of the mob rule, releasing the criminal rather than the man of truth. Understand? I do the same thing today, and yet nothing has changed in the mind of the average man who is controlled, satanically controlled, mind controlled in his decisions, while believing that he is making those decisions himself. I suggest that you all read the article, Josephine County Sheriff's Office, courts, state police, engage in racketeering of travelers at the address I gave at the beginning of this talk. It sums up very clearly the fact that our government, from the federal level, the state level of Oregon, and the county of Josephine, conspire, operate to violate the law, to create fraud, to posit the authority of Satanism in making criminal actions that divert one's attention from truth. You understand? If you read that article, you will see how they have committed fraud for 20 years of those 25. Understand? They have made this man into a criminal when no crime was committed. The crime committed was that of the government in its fraudulent accusation that this living Christ, this simple man of truth, has committed the crime, has violated the law of man. But that law is satanic law. It's a lie. It has no basis in truth. It operates only in a fictional world created by fictional institutions that somehow or another has power over you, the living man, by making you doubt yourselves. You will see that this living Christ, this simple man of truth, has stood up for 25 years to all of the satanic attacks based in illusions. It creates deception, and that deception is regarded as truth by you, when it, of course, is nothing of the sort. It itself is the lie. How do I prove that? Read the article of racketeering of travelers, and it shows you how the government of Josephine County created a crime when they declared that this living man was guilty of violation of their law. But that law had no jurisdiction over him. He's living, and that law is dead, because it is a fiction of one's mind. There is much that you don't understand about what life is all about. And it cannot be done in sound bites. I cannot bring you to that point of understanding through sound bites. But that's what rules in hell. You're based in conclusions. You're based in sound bites. And you argue, because those sound bites cannot possibly tell you the truth. They're too limited. However, those sound bites have tremendous power in hell. They can put a man away for life in prison. They can kill you because you are a person to them. You are not a living man any longer. You have been converted into a fictional person, less than a human being. And they have the right, the power to make you believe that you are under their jurisdiction. I have challenged that in courts of Oregon. I have backed them down, and yet they continue to prosecute and persecute this living Christ. Why? Because they own the media. They own the means of controlling public information. That gives them great power. But it is the power of hell. And it has no power over a living, breathing, flesh and blood man of truth. That I have proven. Now, the fact is that they shall continue to control your minds. For they have, since they have been doing that since the beginning of time. Well, that time now comes to an end with the second coming of Christ consciousness, which I bring to you. And it's, of course, left up to you as to which way you're going to go. Are you happy with your life? Are you satisfied with the quality of your lives? With the fact that you can escape into illusions of happiness when the world is going to hell? Is actually hell manifested. Only you deny it. You escape into your own partial ideas, the fictional beliefs. You're addicted to that level of consciousness. That's all you know. And I realize that I'm shoveling stuff against the tide when I speak the simple, unabated truth to you. And it hurts your feelings. That's the proof of your conditioning, your satanic conditioning. As you well know, I have been seeking an investigation since September the 5th of 2005, when I started this quest for vindication from the deceptions, the fraud, the criminal behavior of that which is called government, the government of Josephine County, Oregon. You see, they let me free of all charges after I spent in 2 trials. Sui juris, spoke for myself, despite the fact that lawyers were imposed upon me by the courts in order to protect them rather than me. I stood, rejected those lawyers, and spoke as all free men will and ought to. That's how we have freedom in this land. When the true government, the people, assert themselves and do not succumb to the threats and intimidations of their servants. Their fictional persons, employees, presidents, kings, queens, they're all fictions. They're all based in your intellectual mind. They don't exist anywhere else but in your fictional intellectual mind. They have the power of hell behind them, and you have been made to doubt yourself. Not this living man. And that is why I am making this video today. To urge you to protect yourself from further enslavement by the New World Order, the Satanic New World Order, which is rapidly bringing you into conflict through a coming financial crash and the conversion into cashless society. You see, it's just another step in their plan to control you through fictional ideas when your money, is merely a symbol of your energy, your output, and they strip it away from you and make you slaves. With this attempt to create a cashless society, they will have total control over you. But don't you understand, you are the living, while these governments and religions and banks are all dead entities, fictions of your mind. They have no power over the living unless they can make you doubt yourself. They can make you believe that they do. Don't be a fool. Only a fool would give up their freedom, their sovereignty, in order to be a slave. And yet that is precisely what you have all done to yourselves. You are the source of your enslavement by your own consent, by your own supporting these fictional agencies with your money, your work output. Understand? You're the real thing. You're the living. They are the dead. And yet they rule you. That's the fact. Now, I, this living Christ, can bring down this government, not only at the county level of Josephine County, or the state level of the Oregon state, but also the federal government, the country, the corporate United States, which is not a country, but a corporation. Understand? That's what this video is all about. Look into my words. You'll note that I put everything in writing. Everything. Jesus of Nazareth, a man that you worship as your God, put nothing in writing. And he spoke in parables, so as not to hurt your feelings, so as not to expose you for the limitations of your intellect that rules you. I don't make that same mistake. I put everything in writing, and all my writings are my sworn statements, as if they would stand up in any satanic court of law. They are my affidavit of truth. Understand? And I must do it in that way for you to understand, because you are programmed to think in that manner. You're not programmed toward apprehending truth. You are programmed to worship the words which reflect truth. But those words are defined and have definitions which are contradictory. That makes for hell on earth. And this living Christ breaks that illusion in no uncertain terms. You will note that I have been trying to get an investigation into this matter of the fraud committed by the various levels of government, the county, the state, and the federal, for 2 decades now. And that investigation is no closer to being had than any of the investigations that are now being put before you in nothing but talk. Yes, I'm talking about Hillary Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophiles. They're just words. Words on the screen. Words in the news media. You understand? They're no closer to being brought to a conclusion than my issue. But my issue is very clear. There was no license to suspend, yet they have suspended an illusory, non-existent license. Because I rescinded my license in 1999, and the first time that I was accused of suspension of license was in 2002, and thereafter, well, after, no license existed. Now that's the crime. The proof is unmistakable. Yet there has been a massive cover-up of the Oregon state and county governments to confuse you, to inundate you with words that I am a criminal, when they, in fact, are the criminal. They're enforcing a false crime they imposed upon a non-existent license holder. Understand? Me, this living Christ. That's the issue. Now, when a government can put a man into jail for years, as they threatened to do with this living Christ, when he challenged them by leaning them with UCC liens, their own satanic liens, their own law, which they could not wiggle out of. Yet they did. And they're able to do so because you are so easily manipulatable by words, false words. There is no truth whatsoever to the fact that I have been driving with a suspended driver's license when I have been traveling, exercising my unalienable rights to travel in my own private automobile, which is not owned by or granted to, by my own consent, to a fictitious satanic county government of Josephine. But that's exactly what they have sought to do. And much to their ability to confuse you, they have succeeded. Why? Because you don't know who you are. You have agreed to your own enslavement of being a citizen. It's time for you to wake up before the financial crash comes into being. You see, that's all manufactured in words, ideas, symbols, illusions, and you believe them to be true. Now, look at the homeless. Look at the jobless. Oh, I know that you're being told that everything is positive in this country, but that's just illusion. It is inevitable that there will be a crash, and that crash will lead to a restructuring of the financial system. And eventually, it will strip you from all cash, from all ability to be responsible. And once they have a cashless society, they can computerize you and shut you off, leaving you penniless, leaving you homeless, leaving you jobless. And all that's left for you is death, because you will be hungry, you will be starving, and you will resort to revolution, to violence, to dualistic killing. That's what awaits you. Population control. That can all be fended off, here and now, based on this living Christ urging you to demand, not request, but demand, that President Donald J. Trump, your servant, he's not your master, he's not a king, understand? You are the master over Donald J. Trump, for he is your employee, and you demand him to order an FBI investigation into the crimes committed against this living Christ for the past several decades. When those crimes are proven, and it's a slam dunk, I guarantee that the facts speak for themselves. I was never under any sort of restrictions. You understand? I rescinded my driver's license, and without such license there can be no suspension. Yet that fraud was committed by the government of the county of Josephine, Oregon. And then they went into a decades-long cover-up, pretending that I had violated laws when I had no jurisdiction over this living man. I was beyond their jurisdiction, and I have proven that in 2 court trials. That's why they released me with no charges. But they killed Jesus Christ. You understand that? And then they made him into a religious icon. Oh, God for you to worship. Is that intelligent? Or is freedom experienced by a sovereign man? True freedom. True. In every word, in every sense of the word. That's what I bring to you. And I suggest that if you want that freedom, you're going to have to assert yourself. Not request, as a slave would do, but demand, as you, the master of government, must do. Demand that Donald J. Trump, your employee, your president, the fictional corporate agency, not even a true government, but one that you have accepted by consent. However, you still are free unless you consent otherwise. And that allows you to demand that an FBI investigation be made into this living Christ and the crimes that have been committed against him by your fictional agency of government. Do that, and you will find the peace that has eluded you all of your life. That is the second coming of Christ consciousness. Thank you.